Creating a dementia-friendly home.
Yeah. Logging pod starts like a conversation. Cup of coffee with no destination. Just voices trying to understand what's happening across this land. From your stories told to the pages turned. Every question, every word, supported by SheSharesStudios.net.
Hello, and welcome to the Vlogging Pod. We're pleased to welcome back dementia educator and advocate Kathy Miracle for another conversation in our ongoing Dementia Awareness series. Kathy, for listeners joining us for the first time, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and the work you're doing through Silver, and I'm going to pronounce that pronunciation on that, Tsunami Aging Info to support families navigating the dementia. Hey, I did pretty good on that.
You did great at that. That's fantastic.
Well, thank you.
So happy to be back on the show again. I am a Colorado native. I actually have my bachelor's degree in speech pathology, audiology, and I got my master's in gerontology with an emphasis in dementia and elder abuse. I spent the better part of 30 plus years in a career working in senior living and specializing working with individuals with a form of dementia and their families. I founded My Silver Tsunami. The baby boomers started turning 65 in 2011, and the last one will turn 65 in 2029. And we have 10 to 15,000 people turning 65 every day. And I believe at one point in time, the baby boomers were referred to as a silver tsunami, but I look at them as a force of nature. I look at them that they deal with a lot of catastrophic challenges, including traveling the journey of dementia. And so I really help people travel that journey in various ways. I am a nationally approved subject matter expert, so I work with attorneys on court cases on aging services and aging individuals. And I just now recently launched a book. It's called Your Ticket to Compassion, Navigating the Dementia Journey. It is available to digitally download and will soon be able to order for paperback. So
Yay!
I love what I do.
It sounds like it. I'm so thrilled about the book. Cannot wait.
Yep. Very excited.
So for today, since we've been continuing this series, I'd like to focus on something that affects nearly every family: caring for a loved one with dementia, creating a home environment that promotes safety while still allowing the individual to maintain as much dignity and independence as possible. So I'm going to keep the interview just kind of like a little bit here. You probably already know every question I'm going to ask.
Well, see.
You can read my mind. That's what I know. When somebody receives a dementia diagnosis, what's the first thing families should evaluate about that home environment?
Well, ideally, in a perfect world, it'd be nice if families were already in a ranch-style home.
Mm.
Navigating the stairs can be a safety concern, although stairs can also create a physical exercise on a daily basis too.
Mm.
I'm partial to a ranch-style home. However, I've known individuals and seen individuals that they've been in a tri-level or a bi-level home and definitely have stairs there. And so my biggest concern is always, if you do have stairs, what kind of handrails do you have in place? What kind of flooring do you have in place? And so I always want to evaluate that component first. And is there any flexibility in going to a ranch style home? If not, then we definitely want to make sure stairs are going to be safe. And so while it may not look aesthetically pleasing, having handrails on both sides that someone can hold on to really can help somebody stabilize themselves as they are going up and down the stairs. Flooring, so homes that I go into to do evaluations, I see a lot of people who have spent years decorating it beautifully. They've got great furniture and they have beautiful pictures on the wall. However, for the person with dementia, it can feel very overwhelming. And so having a very simplified environment is really super important to navigate. There are so many different things between lighting and flooring. I always tell people solid colors are better. When you get into furniture and carpet and drapery, that have all these patterns in them, it can be very problematic for the person with dementia. Their brain no longer understands how to visually process that and how to understand it, especially with carpeting. Carpeting that's pattern can cause problems with people wanting to step up or step down. The same goes for, like, if you go from carpet to hardwood floors, or in one situation, this family had this stone, like not really ceramic flooring, but it's like it actually looked like brick stone. It had a very Tuscany feel to it. But people trying to transition on from one surface to another, again, it becomes a higher fall risk. And
Mm.
be very, very careful. We also want to be careful and not have like cream colored carpeting that goes to walnut covered wood flooring, because again, people want to step up and step down. So flooring
Wow.
is really, really, really important. You don't want too thick of a carpet. If someone has a walker, it becomes challenging, or if they shuffle their feet, it becomes a fall risk. At the same time, you want to be careful with flooring that if it gets wet, it becomes a slip hazard. So everybody is a little bit different. And so depending on the type of dementia somebody has and where they might be age-wise, and where they're at in their journey, flooring, different recommendations can be made. It's not a blanket recommendation. I make different recommendations based on the family's environment in that individual.
Hmm. That's very interesting. I didn't even think about the pattern. And it's interesting you say cream colored to is it darker wood?
Yeah, darker wood.
And they
Or the
want to
vice.
step.
Yeah, darker, like you could have navy blue carpet or forest green carpet, and then you have this very beige colored wood flooring, but they see it as needing to step up or step down.
Nuts.
When I'm in actually senior living communities, and I mean, one of the communities I went into, they had just over 700 falls in a 12-month period of time, and I was like, "What in the heck is going on?" That's
Ah.
what a lot of their flooring looked like, when they had cream colored carpet with dark wood floors, and there they had, it was just amazing to me, and I was like, "Oh, okay, we gotta figure something out here, because this is part of your challenge, is that difference in flooring."
Wow. I would have never thought something like that's very it's amazing how the brain works.
It is amazing how the brain works, absolutely. And the thing is that as people travel through the dementia journey, their vision can and does change. And so it can work in someone's favor, in a family's favor, because like person who starts to exit seek. And I want to be real careful, and I want families to understand that I hear people say, well, they wandered out of the house. So there's really actually purposeful wandering, non-purposeful wandering, and exit seeking. Purposeful wandering happens mostly in the home. It can happen in a community, but it usually in somebody's room. What purposeful wandering is they're actually, the person's going around, and they usually do it in a pattern. Like they'll wander in the home in a pattern where they're actually touching things that they still understand what it is, and it connects to them. So they may touch a picture where the family was all in Hawaii on a family vacation, or they may touch a vase where that was a gift given to them on a 25th anniversary. And so they touch those things, and it's a self-soothing thing, and it helps them stay very grounded. Then there's non-purposeful wandering, which you do see less in the home, more in a community, but it's a very jig-jaggedy, and you see their breathing changes, and their anxiety gets really high. And there, you have to jump in and calm somebody down. You don't want to jump in with purposeful wandering. You want to let them self-soothe themselves. They're calm. Non-purposeful wandering, you definitely need to jump in, because they're agitating themselves. They're getting agitated. They don't understand. They're highly confused. Could be during sundowning hours. And so you want to jump in. Exit seeking actually means they're trying to get out. They're trying to get out a window. They're trying to get out a door. And so where this can work in their favor with families, if families put like a 4 foot by 6 foot black mat, it's like the ones you see in companies. They're thin and they have rubber backing. If you put
Mhm.
that in front of a door, typically someone won't walk out the door. It's too
Wow.
big for them to jump. And so what families typically will do, or that they advise or to do, is to put an alarm on the door. Well, an alarm alerts the caregiver or the family member that somebody may be going out the door. For the person with dementia, they just hear this alarm or this noise or this bell go off, and they don't always understand where it's coming from. And it can actually trigger agitation and frustration in the person with dementia. And so by
Mm.
putting the black mat in front of a door, typically the person won't cross it. They may walk up to it, but then they usually will turn around and go back into the home. So it helps keep the environment calm, and it helps keep the person safe.
You know, without meaning to, you just answered my second question. I told you. I told you you can read my mind. It was about the alarms and locks. Yeah, so that's yeah, I'm telling you, you are really in on it.
Right. I'm not a I tell families, so when with people with dementia, they don't tend to look up, they don't look down. Their vision, their spot of vision is usually just about a little bit above them and a little bit below. And so you
Mhm,
can put like a chain lock or a lock high up on the door or possibly low on the door. They're not always going to understand where that lock is. Some will, depending, because they people with dementia still have cognitively alert moments. So in that alert moment, it's fair game. But if you put the lock clear up at the top of the door or at the bottom, usually they don't understand why the door won't open. They just know it's not
mhm.
open. But I'm not a fan of alarms for I'm gonna date myself now, but I always refer to the scene in Rain Man with, Dustin Hoffman and Tom Cruise. It's at the end of the movie where he's trying to make pancakes and it's burning and the smoke alarm's going off and it wakes Tom Cruise up, but you see Dustin Hoffman is just trying to opening the door. And he's very frustrated and he's very agitated because he doesn't understand where the alarm's coming. He doesn't understand what happened. And now,
Mhm,
granted, he has autism in the movie, but it's a very clear description of this is what can happen. And so we don't want to be triggering behaviors. We want to keep people safe. But most often, what I see families do is they set up the environment for the caregiver, for the person, so they're alerted and instead of setting it up for the person with dementia. And then that's where behaviors get triggered. And that's where we see increased agitation and frustration. And so I'm not a huge fan of alarms. There is a time and place for everything. But from my dad, when it was a bed alarm, he used to call it the tattletale bed. So I think tattletale bed. And so it can actually, if you think about if you had a quiet environment and all of a sudden you heard this alarm go off, it would startle you. It would startle me. And so for the person with dementia, it's gonna startle them first. It's not gonna protect them first. It's gonna startle them first.
right. Now, just from what we've explained here, and you talk about not having a whole lot of pictures, the decorating, because a lot of patterns and stuff can confuse them. So, what can families do to make a home safer, but without making it feel like it's a hospital room?
Well, I mean, you can still have some pictures on the wall, and if it helps, I can certainly send you like a bullet point thing that people could download from the website or whatever you
Mhm.
need. Because there's certain colors you want to use, there's certain colors you want to stay away from, depending. So, like red is a very bad color. It's aggression.
Mm.
Black, white. Those are very aggressive. Those are things that are difficult for people with dementia. Now, what I can say that helps them is like if you have a white toilet on a that's and you have a white floor, they're not going to see the toilet. It blends together. Kind of like mashed potatoes on a white plate or corn on a yellow plate. They can't see that. So you want to be careful with colors, and there's certain colors to use. There's actually a study that was done years and years ago about the red plate study where people will consume 25 to 30% more liquids or food if food is served on a red plate. My argument with that is what do red bell peppers or tomatoes look like? So I usually recommend a light blue plate because I don't know a food out there that's light blue. And so it has a
Mhm.
very good contrast. When we simplify an environment, so we want to be careful with colors, seafoam green, soft blues, those are great colors to use in an environment. You can still have, simple things on the wall. Like having some pictures on the wall is great. Taking up every inch of the wall with pictures not so great. You want to make sure you have overhead lighting and, the overhead lighting. Well, I'm sorry, not overhead lighting. Overhead lighting can look more like a corporate environment. So wall sconces, lamps on tables are softer lighting for families. And so you want to still make it feel home and friendly, but you want to be careful what you use. So drapes can be used and I encourage drape to be used. Just don't have a pattern. Have let's say you have the walls as a light blue. You could have curtains as a navy blue. So you can still have a warm and friendly home. You just got to be careful of the patterns, the plaids, the weightiness, especially. Oh my goodness! I walked into a home and it had all these big red or big colored dots, different sizes of dots, and this wavy pattern through it. And the gentleman the wife was taking care of her husband and he kept falling. And I was like, oh my gosh. Okay. And I know that's expensive to replace flooring, so I try really hard to say, what other things could we find to help this person? And we got runner rugs is what we did. We got
Mhm.
these solid color runner rugs that he knew to stay. Like we conditioned him to stay on these runner rugs. And so that was helpful for him. So it's different for everybody, but if you can, gravitate to solid colors and the right colors, you can make the home a very, very warm and friendly place.
Mhm. Now, as we're talking about different colors and patterns and things to do, and it does astound me about the white toilet. I don't I'm thinking about problems in my own home. But as dementia progresses, how do you decide when it's time to make those additional changes around the home rather than waiting for the accident to happen?
Well, I tell everybody is that as soon as you get the dementia diagnosis, you want to start making those changes because
Mm,
usually that is earlier in the dementia journey and that gives the person the ability to adjust to the new environment while they still have some cognitive abilities to do so. When changes start being made later down the road, like we introduce a walker, I even like if you're going to have somebody come into the home and help care for a person because they eventually need it and you need a break as a caregiver and you want to keep them at home as long as possible, introduce that company or those individuals earlier on. Like they can go for a walk with the person. They may not need that person at this moment. And so it seems like people don't want to spend the money on doing that. However, you introduce something too late in the dementia journey and you're going to get a person who's very defensive. They will fire the outside person coming in saying, you don't need to be here. It's very difficult to change the environment at that point because now it's new to them. And getting used to anything new later in the dementia journey is very problematic and very concerning. So, as soon as you have that dementia diagnosis and you're like, okay, this is the path we're going down, we want to start making those changes early on so the person has time to wrap their head around it and they have the chance to absorb it while they still can cognitively.
mm. Now, okay, so as we're talking about making those changes, what rooms exactly would you think need the most? Kitchen, bathroom, bedroom?
Here's what I will tell you. It's where do you spend the most time? Every
Mm,
family is a little bit different. Some families, they spend the majority of their time in the kitchen. Some families spend the majority of their time in the dining room. Some families spend the majority of their time in the bedroom. It just kind of depends on the individual. I would say bathrooms always need to,
mhm,
you always want to look at that because it's a safety issue. So if you have a bathroom, and some of these older homes do have this, is they have the tub, the iron cast tub where you have to step in and out of. And while I know it's expensive to remodel and I know it's expensive for some of these things, but that's a huge, huge safety issue. Somebody's going to trip and fall. They're going to not be able to get their leg high enough over, you're in a wet environment trying to get out of a tub. So if you're going to spend money somewhere, spend the most money in remodeling a bathroom where you have a walk-in shower,
mm,
and
yeah,
they can do these showers now that have built-in shower benches, or you can have shower benches installed which will fold down when the person needs it, and you can fold it up when another person doesn't. But being able to step in and out of a shower that's a walk in is so much safer and it is so much easier, especially when the person may need help and assistance with bathing. For someone else to help bathe them with a walk in shower is a lot easier and you can get through the process faster than for a bathroom that has a cast iron tub in it still. Lighting in bathrooms are not always the greatest. So I always say, try to get the lighting a little bit better. Toilets, you may need to get a ADA toilet so it's higher or get something that somebody can, a toilet helper, have the arms that they can push up on. You want handicap bars installed so people, while they're in the shower, have something to grab onto. You want to make sure your flooring is where it should be. People will put these area rugs so somebody has something warm to step onto. And that's great. You just want to make sure that the rubber backing doesn't wear away because now that becomes a fall risk once it
mm,
does. Because bathroom rugs, as they get washed, the rubber tends to deteriorate. So you always want to make sure that you have something there that's going to be solid for someone to step onto and not step onto it and the rug goes. So I tell people be very careful if you're going to warm up a bathroom when taking bathing. There's a lot of tips and tricks when it comes to bathing somebody to get them through the bathing process a lot easier. One is warming up the bathroom with hot water. So, because as we age, our skin gets thinner and we don't have the same insulation usually as we did when we were younger. And so, the bathing process, one, it's exhausting for the person with dementia. There's a lot of steps. If you were to sit down and really write out the steps for the bathing process, there's a lot of steps for the person to have to follow in the bathing
Mm,
process. And so, it can be really confusing. And so the bathroom, if you're going to warm it up, be careful that there's not a smoke alarm right outside of that door. I've seen so many people set off smoke alarms because the steam from the bathroom is great. It's very warm, but you open
mhm.
that door up and the steam hits that smoke alarm and it's going to set it off. So if you're in a situation where you have that smoke alarm outside of it, then we have to think of a different way to heat the bathroom up, or you're going to be setting that off, which then causes its own issues. The bathrooms are a big deal for me to make sure they're safe, to make sure there's enough room to maneuver a wheelchair or a walker if we can. If that's not the option, I know, like, I have cousins who live in rural Kansas and their bathroom is very tight. I have two cousins when I've been at their houses, and I look at both of their homes and I'm like, oh my goodness, there's no way you could get a wheelchair in here. You barely get a walker in here. So sometimes that's not the option. But usually those bathrooms, you can hold on to the wall, you can hold on to the sink, you can hold on to some things because 'cause they're that tight. But if you're gonna put money into anything, I tell families put the money into the bathroom because that's where slips and falls are gonna happen. When it comes to bedrooms, you wanna make them comfortable. You wanna make them. I encourage blackout curtains because the person with dementia, and as the day goes along too, as sunset comes, as evening comes, I tell people to close the curtains because what that person's gonna do as the dementia journey happens, they'll look and they'll see their reflection in the window, and it can increase anxiety or fear that someone's trying to break in. And now
Yeah.
someone's to the home, and now I wanna call the police, and now I'm gonna grab my shotgun and that
Mhm.
happen when they wanna protect their home and their loved ones. So closing those curtains anyway near dusk and the end of the day is also going to help them understand. It helps them continue coaching and guiding them that we're winding down for the day. There's no sunlight out there, but having the blackout curtains in the bedroom can also help maybe with them sleeping better at night.
Mhm. Hmm. So, Kathy, creating a dementia-friendly home can feel overwhelming at first. I'm only can imagine. So, before we close for today, what words of encouragement would you offer families who are just beginning the process?
I would tell families just take it one step at a time. I mean, the room you spend the most time in is probably where you want to start. If that's the family room, if that's the bedroom, although the bathroom, like I said, is the main thing. I I get so many questions about how to create a dementia friendly home. We will actually have a download paper on my website. I'm hoping
Mhm.
to have that up by the end of July. And so then that way, if families want to just visit our website, they can click on that and print it off, or we can send it to them, or we'll get a way to get them to 'em, because I have a very solid checklist. And here's the things that I recommend you look at, and you look at so that you can create the best, safe, and friendly home that you can to keep that person at home as long as you possibly can.
Wonderful. I wanna thank you again, Kathy, for being with us again tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Oh, wonderful. I wanna thank our listeners. Until next time, bye-bye for now.